Today, in this video, in this clip, I want to talk about Total Immersion Training. Yes, Total Immersion Training. Oh my God, this is absolutely the secret to acquiring new skills. It is the secret to smashing through boundaries. It is the secret to breaking old patterns and habits. And it's the secret to acquiring new methods of behaving to absolutely take your life to the next level. It does involve facing your fears. It does involve using courage, and it does involve total commitment. So if that's not for you, turn off this video right now. But if you want to take your life to the next level, listen to the next few minutes about Total Immersion Training. What is it? Total Immersion Training is all about completely immersing yourself in a situation through which you will learn and acquire new skills that are pushing you beyond your current limits. The mistake that so many people make when they're trying to learn something new is that they might do a little bit here, a little bit there, with the hope of it sort of starting to change their behavior, with the hope of it becoming a habit. It's absolutely not gonna work. Or if it does work, it's incredibly slow and the chances of failure are very, very high. When we are trying to change a behavior or learn something new, we have to consider that we're not just adding something new to ourselves, we're actually replacing a pre-existing behavior. Even if we say, well, I haven't got a particular skill and I want to learn that skill, the way you're behaving on that topic is itself a behavior which needs to be broken. And so if we've got an established behavior that's been in us for our lifetime up until that point, it's very, very real, because the way we behave, the way we think, the way we act, it's all connected to our physical body and our neurology. And so there will be neural networks and patterns in our brain which actually determine the way in which we behave. So if we're learning a new skill which involves changing our current behavior, that behavior is kind of hard-coded into our hardware, our body, if you like. And so if we're going to change that behavior, kind of tapping on it once a week by doing a little class or spending some time reading this and reading that, it may over a long term have an impact, but your chances of success are so much lower. What Total Immersion Training is about is saying, do you know what? I want to learn this new skill. I'm going to focus everything on it right now. I'm going to come at this full on, with full commitment, with full energy, and absolutely smash through that old pattern of behavior and create a new one. So I want to give you a practical example of how you can do this. And this example is with regards to building social confidence and building that belief in yourself that you can be this person who goes out there and socializes with people, meets new people, can initiate conversation with random people who you meet, and even pick up hot girls who you see on the street, or hot guys if you're a girl watching this, without any fear at all. I should correct myself. Not without any fear at all, but without letting the fear stop you. So, a few years ago, I had been in a situation in my life where I had spent all of my time and energy focused on building my business. My life literally was just about work, sleep, work, sleep. I had very, very little interaction with friends and people outside of the realm of my work on a day-to-day basis. And my life literally was just about work. And actually, in the arena of work, I was quite, I was effective, I was bold. I mean, I've built an amazing company. But the second I came out of that, I felt like I was out of my comfort zone. And I reached a stage in my life a few years ago where I really wanted to work on my social life. I wanted to build a friend circle. And I felt myself being held back. This was also around the same time where I was starting to have a greater and greater dependence on alcohol. So when I would go out, I would feel the need to actually, drink and get drunk before I found myself kind of being able, as my belief system was at the time, to actually socialize and behave effectively. So some other stuff happened in my life which led me to say, you know what, I do not want to drink anymore. And then I stopped drinking. I gave it up. I did an Alan Carr course on alcohol, gave it up, stopped drinking. But then when I went out, I found myself being this awkward, introverted, nervous person. And even, if I was with a group of some people who I knew, or friends of friends, I was just unable to socialize. I was just quiet, I was timid, my character wasn't there, my energy wasn't there, and I was a completely different person. But I smashed through it, and I did it with Total Immersion Training. The way I did it was I actually signed up for the most extreme version of social confidence building that I could possibly think of. And what I noticed and what I realized was that the hardest person I would ever find to talk to, the time when the fears and the nerves within me would be at their peak, would be if I saw a really hot girl who I was attracted to, and I thought to myself, oh, she's hot, I would love to talk to her, right? But something held me back. Like that, my fear in a social setting was at its greatest when the thing I was trying to do was talk to a hot girl, because there's so much more emotion and thoughts and feelings kind of involved in a situation like that. We're at a heightened sense of emotional state if there's sexual attraction involved. So I said, if I want to smash through my social confidence issues in the most powerful and most impactful way, then I want to do this in the context of women, because once I do it to that extreme, it will have a knock-on impact to all other areas of my life. So I found a pickup training course, and I did a 1 weekend training session, which was total immersion for 3 days straight, 3 full days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And what we did during those 3 days started with simple training exercises and drills and went all the way up to really extreme interactions with women. So we started, on the Friday during the daytime, doing simple social drills around central London. We were in Trafalgar Square, we were in Leicester Square. We did simple things like walking down the street, and we had to kind of make direct eye contact with people and hold our eye contact with them until they looked away. We did things like having to stand, on the edge of the square in Leicester Square and giving a speech to whoever would listen. We'd have to talk for a minute on a random topic. We'd do things like having to stand by a lamppost and dance around. And at the beginning of that process, our guide, our teacher would tell us, this is what you're going to do. And there'd be self-confidence issues around that. We'd be like, well, what are people going to think? People are going to think I'm a weirdo. And there's this real barrier to get over. But when you just say, you know what, that fear's there, I'm going to take action, I'm going to do it. And you do these small acts and nothing happens, you realize that, that fear was ungrounded. And then you start to build momentum because we're doing it all day, right? And these drills start getting more and more extreme. And then we start getting to the stage where we're going to have to go and talk to a group of girls or talk to girls on the street. And the idea was just to say hello or start talking to them for as long as we could about whatever the hell comes up. You could be talking about those ridiculous stuff. You could literally just say, hi, I'm Shazz. And, nothing else happens in that conversation. She might just be like, hi, and walk off. But the point is to gradually break down these barriers. And over the course of a whole day, over the course of a weekend, I don't care. Even if I talk to a girl and she just turns around and walks off, which happened a few times. The first time it happens, it is painful as hell. But once it's happened 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, he's like, oh, okay, she walked off. And at the same time, by approaching more and more girls, you get to a stage where actually you start engaging with them. You start becoming comfortable. You start realizing that fear is not something which I really care about anymore. But you become fearless. But fearless doesn't mean the fear's not there. Fearless means that the fear is present, but you're not paying attention to it. And by the time we got to the evenings and on the Saturday, we then started going out to clubs in the evenings. A club is like, a jungle. There is so much crazy stuff going on. There's so much noise. There's like people are drunk, you know, there's like really loud music, people are talking, people are dancing, and there are so many distractions. This is one of the most extreme environments that you can enter if you are trying to randomly cold approach a hot girl who has obviously made an effort to look absolutely spankingly hot because she's out clubbing. And every guy, if she's hot, every guy in that place is going to be trying to, you know, looking at her, they're going to be wanting her, right? That is the most extreme environment you can possibly go in. So by the time it got to Friday, Saturday night, we're going to these clubs, and then we have to go and approach women in the club, and we have to engage in conversation with them for a full minute or 2 minutes, and we're being timed. And we have to do everything within our power to maintain that conversation. Now remember, we've spent a whole day training and doing drills, so we've already started to build our confidence now. So and we've been approaching women in the daytime, talking to them. By this point, we've gone and sat down for coffee with a few girls who we've just met on the street. So the idea of talking to women in the club it's still a bit daunting, but it's still achievable. So we start talking to some of the girls who were like standing around the bar, which is nerve-wracking to begin with. And then we start approaching groups of girls on the dance floor. And it got at its most extreme. There were like hot girls dancing on the podium, not the paid dancer girls, but girls who were visiting the club, and they're, you know, doing their hot, sexy dancing thing on the poles. You know, they're the center of attention. Every guy in that place would love to be with that girl. And I had to literally go up, stand on the platform. I'm not allowed to dance. To stand next to the girls, and I have to engage them in conversation. I have to use absolutely, you know, exaggerated body language. I have to speak at loud volume. I have to make eye contact, everything within my power to engage them in this jungle environment that they're in. And oh my God, I was sweating, I was scared, I was nervous. I didn't want to do it. I had to get pushed to go and do it, even after all the other training prior. And I did it, and I absolutely caved, you know, it just was awkward. I walked off the platform, and my trainer's like, you didn't stay in there for the full 2 minutes, you gotta go back. So I had to go back on the platform and keep talking to the girls. I did this a few times to different women at different times throughout the evening, and do you know what? It remained scary, even on the last one that I did, but it was nowhere near as scary as the first one. Now, the point is, we're not going to be on a day-to-day basis approaching hot girls dancing on podiums in jungle environment, you know, nightclubs. But when you get to a stage through total immersion training where even if that's still a bit nerve-wracking, you can still get yourself together, go up there and execute at that really extreme level, then approaching that girl in the bar, you know, talking to that girl on the street, saying hi to the girl in the grocery store, you know, talking randomly to a person who you meet on the street, you know, going to a business networking event, saying hi to a random person because you think they look interesting, you know, taking bold actions. All of a sudden, it's easy. And that fear is like, you know what? I got this. You know, it's that sheer contrast by operating at the most extreme end of the spectrum, which is like so far above the regular day-to-day interactions you'll have on a day-to-day basis. When you then are in those regular day-to-day interactions, you're operating at such a high level of energy and confidence, it becomes super easy. Now that I did in a 3-day total immersion training weekend, and it absolutely transformed my character. From there on in, it just becomes about momentum and continuing the practice and getting better and better and better with every passing day, with every passing week. So that is what total immersion training is about, and you can apply that concept to anything from learning a new language to learning a new skill to training yourself in business knowledge to you name it. There is an approach through total immersion training which will absolutely enable you to transform yourself and accelerate that learning curve. But yeah, for me, it was all about the social confidence, building it, and building that momentum, taking it to the next level. So yeah, that is Total Immersion Training. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, guys. Have you experienced Total Immersion Training in the past? Have there been times when you have smashed through old behavior patterns? How did you do it? In hindsight, were you doing Total Immersion Training? Or, did you take a sort of more prolonged approach? What was effective for you? What worked? What didn't work? Add your comments below and I will respond to any comments and questions that you guys leave for me. I hope you enjoyed this video on Total Immersion Training, and there will be much more related topics to come. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.